Jesse asks, I just started to collect vinyl. What band's vinyl record do you recommend? I listen to rock, metal, and heavy. So I'm really glad you asked this question because, as you know, while I do love collecting video games, I'm also really passionate about collecting vinyl records. And I've been doing it since I've been a kid. When I grew up, vinyl was the standard. And it was only when I was in junior high and high school that things started to transition over to cassette and also to CDs. But I have a soft spot for vinyl. And this video is not going to be necessarily for newbie collectors because I actually plan on doing a really big vinyl collecting guide. I reached out to a local Seattle record store. It's called Easy Street Records, and they agreed to let me shoot there. And so I'm going to be doing that really soon. I'm going to do an entire guide for people who are just trying to collect vinyl, talk about turntables and needles and what to look for, all the different styles of vinyl and the history of it. It's going to be really cool. I can't wait to do it. So for this one though, you asked me for suggestions for bands and vinyl records to buy. And I gotta tell you, this is really fun to do because I could have picked out 100, 200. I mean, I've got a pretty big collection back there. And you know, it's just really fun to sort of dig through those and go, okay, what do I want to show? So this is a very quick, I'm just gonna blow through a bunch of these. I have about 20 plus vinyl to show you, and it ranges from, well, it's a little of everything. You said rock and metal and heavy, so I'm just gonna go for it. So we're gonna start with the 70s, which the 70s for me was the pinnacle of vinyl, and especially special editions, but really the music in the 70s was what my dad listened to and what I was exposed to very early on. And one of the very first albums that my dad owned that, well, frankly, it scared the hell out of me because it was so weird, but it's a really good record. So I'm gonna go really quick here. That is Deep Purple's Burn. This is a great, great album. The first song, Burn, is one of the greatest rock songs ever written. This is just such a great album. One of the things I like about it though is the cover art, that it has these really weird candles on it, and it's the band members, but when you flip it over, the candles have melted and their faces are all melted. It's like really disturbing. I don't know, it's just one of those really interesting things, but this is a really great album. And you know, you don't have a lot of Deep Purple fans talking about it, but it's one of my favorites. It has David Coverdale of Whitesnake on it. I believe this was his first album for Deep Purple and really made his career. So anyways, check this out. Keeping with the 70s, you can't talk about rock and not talk about the mighty Led Zeppelin. I think you should own pretty much all of their first 5 or 6 albums, but this one I wanted to highlight because it's Physical Graffiti, so this is a double album, lots of music on this, but one of my favorite features of this is that the record sleeve functions as a way of changing. Mine's kind of messed up here, as you can tell, but changing the cover. So you can basically pull out the record sleeve, move it around, and literally make the album cover your own. But this wasn't the only album that Led Zeppelin did that with. They also did that with Led Zeppelin 3. That had a rivet and a sphere that you could spin and make the album look the way you wanted to. It was so cool. So anyways, I want to mention Led Zeppelin, of course. And then, of course, you can't have the 70s without, well, AC/DC. And this is a really cool album here because it's my understanding that this is the very first release from AC/DC. This was the Australian version of High Voltage. And if you were to ask me what I prefer as far as AC/DC's career goes, I definitely prefer the Bon Scott era and those early years. And this is a really cool vinyl to have because it's got a couple songs that never made it over here in North America. So anyways, I think actually one song called Stick Around, oh, and also Love Song. So 2 tracks that never made it over here. If you see this at a pawn shop or something, definitely pick it up. All right, we're moving along, and now to the 80s, and one of the best album covers of all time. I know that's a huge thing to say, but I swear by it. Actually, this band made a ton of great album covers. You see it in a lot of my videos. No surprise here, Iron Maiden. So, what Iron Maiden album do I start with because they were so awesome? Somewhere in Time has one of the best covers ever. I mean, it's this really cool, futuristic sci-fi motif that they got going on here. But what's really cool about this cover is that Eddie is obviously like a space guy here. He's got like, you know, like a laser gun and stuff like that. But it has a nod to a bunch of early albums on here. So, for instance, you see Acacia Avenue right here, which is from, geez, I think... A Number of the Beast. There's a bunch of other stuff in here too. Like, for instance, they give nods to Isaac Asimov. They give nods to Blade Runner. For instance, the Tyrell Corporation, I believe, is in here somewhere. Anyways, it's just a love letter to sci-fi. Oh yeah, Aces High, Bar, just a bunch of really cool stuff. So while this isn't probably Iron Maiden's best album, to be honest, it does have some really good songs on here. I really do like Wasted Years. The solo on that song, one of the best of all time. But if you're collecting vinyl, I think this is one of the holy grails. But also, you know, honestly, Iron Maiden made tons of great album art. And so anyways, this is a really good one. All right, so the next one here is a bit of a hidden gem. I'm gonna take you back a little bit here. I don't know how old you are, but in the late 80s, there was a band who came out that a lot of people were like, they're so derivative. They sound like Led Zeppelin. They're copying this, they're copying that. The name of that band was Kingdom Come, and they definitely sounded like Led Zeppelin in the 80s. And, you know, not necessarily that was a bad thing, but definitely they kind of got shot down here in North America because of that. It's a shame because they actually were pretty decent musicians and certainly great players, but they never quite hit it off here. And that's a shame because they released an album called In Your Face. Fairly generic cover here, but I want to point this one out because if you're a fan of 80s rock, you know, kind of hair metal style rock, this is a really good album and nobody knows about it here in North America, and it's a real shame. And primarily it's because people kind of, you know, look down on them, and frankly I don't give a crap about that stuff. I just care if the music is good, and this album has good music. So check out Kingdom Come, In Your Face. Next up is a band that I used to make fun of as a kid because I thought they were kind of dumb. I didn't really understand them. I know that's going to hurt the feelings of some of you, but it's the truth. However, I have seen the ways of my errors, and I've seen the light, and I am now a fan of Manowar, Fighting the World. And here's the thing, right? This cover is cheesy. All right, it's cheesy. But a lot of things in the 80s were kind of cheesy, and so this fits pretty well. But the thing is, though, this album is solid. This album is good. This album rocks. It's really good songwriting. I recently bought this on a whim because actually a lot of people on my channel were telling me to check out Manowar. I was like, really? Yeah, you guys are right. This is a really awesome album. Definitely check out Manowar, Fighting the World. It's really good. Okay, next up from the 80s, another band that I think a lot of people have you know, preconceived notion of, hair metal, pop songs, whatever. But the truth is, Def Leppard, when they first started, they were hard rock and they kicked ass. And one of their best albums is High and Dry. If you want to dig into Def Leppard and listen to some of the better stuff that they did, really good hard rock, pick up High and Dry. You will not be disappointed. This is before they did all the hair metal stuff. This is before Pyromania. This is before Hysteria. This is a really good album. And honestly, when I go back and I listen to Def Leppard today, I'm more likely to put this album on than some of their other more popular stuff, just because, again, this still sounds really good. So definitely check this out. All right, so another band from the 80s that I really dug as a kid. The first album I got from them was a live album, and it was a double live album, and that is Scorpions Worldwide Live. Dude, this is such a good live album. This is, you know, the live albums, so to give you a little perspective here, I'm actually not a huge fan of live albums because often the vocals are sloppy. Sometimes the audience is too loud. You know, I don't know, just sometimes it's not better than the originals. You know, I often want to go back to the originals because that's what I love. With this album, many of the songs and many of the versions on here are better than the originals. And that's the reason why I love this album so much. The other thing to know about this, it's a gatefold open vinyl record here. Plus it's got really cool sleeve art, so that it's got a bunch of behind the scenes footage from the tour. But the other thing to notice is that this was a longer album than the original CD. See, CDs back in the 80s were only 78 minutes long. This album had songs that would not fit on a CD. So from my perspective, you had to own this because you needed, like, for instance, there's a guitar instrumental on here that, again, they just couldn't fit on the CD. So this is a definitive version of it, and I like it a lot. Speaking of live albums, one of the greatest live albums of all time, and there's a little bit of controversy because they supposedly dubbed or redubbed some of it in the studio after they recorded it. I don't care, it's still really good. And that is Kyuss Alive. This is a awesome album. Kyuss up to this point they weren't really capturing the magic of the band on their studio albums. And it was only whenever they created this that you really got to see how brilliant they were, how energetic they were on stage. And so that's why Kyuss Alive is such a big deal back in the day. And you know, I would say also buy Kyuss Alive 1 and then also Kyuss Alive 2, because I think they're both really good albums and good documents of where Kyuss was at. All right, guys, well, let's move up to more current music. I do actually listen to current releases, and one that I've really gotten into lately is The Pretty Reckless. This is Going to Hell, and it's a bit you know, maybe naked there. Maybe I should censor that a little bit, but anyways, this is actually a really great vinyl record, and it's a great album. It's actually in clear vinyl here. Check it out, very awesome. This, you know, actually I listen to a lot of music, and you know, 9 out of 10 albums I actually don't like. You know, for whatever reason, they don't connect with me. Maybe I don't give them enough time, but I really do like this album. It's a mix of probably maybe Heart, because she's a very sort of bluesy, soulful singer, but also the White Stripes and a little bit of, you know, 80s metal. Really like this album quite a bit. Another recent band that I have shown a little bit on my channel, somewhat controversial, and that is the band Ghost, or Ghost BC here in North America. And this is the EP, If You Have Ghost. So some people are kind of surprised that I like this, and that is because the band is fairly open about their lyrics being somewhat satanic. To be quite honest, I don't give a crap. I don't really listen to music for the lyrics. Often the lyrics on most of these albums are kind of dumb, you know? Or, you know, back in the 80s, people complained about Number of the Beast from Iron Maiden. And you could say that's satanic or whatever, you know? There's a lot of that. And I feel like I just kind of grew out of it. And at the end of the day, I just really care if the music is good. And honestly, Ghost makes some of the best music I've heard in a long time. It's sort of Black Sabbath meets Blue Oyster Cult meets something else. I mean, they're really good, very melodic, pretty awesome. What's really cool about this EP, though, is that it was recorded, and supposedly Dave Grohl also, he recorded it, but he also played drums on some of it. And the drumming's awesome, and it sounds really good. What's cool about it, though, is that it's covers. So they actually cover a bunch of bands on here. One of the more interesting ones is I'm a Marionette. That's an ABBA cover. So here is a quote-unquote satanic band covering ABBA. I think that's pretty funny. I do feel like that they have a bit of a sense of humor, so I like them a lot. All right, so also here's going back to the 80s, 1985, and an album that back in the day caused some controversy as well. It's a mix of thrash metal and punk, and it is deliberately funny or edgy or silly, and that is Stormtroopers of Death, Speak English or Die. this is a pretty awesome album. It's a mix of like I said, thrash and punk. Very short songs. Let me give you an example of some songs here. Kill Yourself, Speak English or Die, Chromatic Death. That song is 40 seconds long. Anti-Procrastination song is 3 seconds long. What's That Noise, Milk, Premenstrual, Princess Blues, Pussy Whipped, Fist Banging Mania. It goes on and on. This may not be everybody's cup of tea, but the riffs are really solid. As a matter of fact, Headbangers Ball used this album for their theme song for years. The other cool thing about the vinyl on this is that it comes in a military green, which is always very cool. So definitely check out Stormtroopers of Death. Here is an album that I loved when it first came out. They released it in 180 gram vinyl, which is really high quality vinyl. And that is Pantera's Vulgar Display of Power, one of the greatest 90s metal albums of all time. So many great songs on here. But I want to point this out because in order to do this release right, so this is a re-release. This is a modern re-release of a 90s album. But again, what they did was they put it on really high quality vinyl to make sure that the sound quality was really excellent. Technically, this sounds better than a CD or even the average MP3. And in order to do that, they put it on. They had to split it up, so it's actually 4 sides. But it's a metal masterpiece, and it's really, really awesome. I've talked about Kyuss in the past. Kyuss is a stoner rock band, and Kyuss originally was, well, what happened with Kyuss is that they came out, kind of got a following, and then they sort of fell apart. They turned into Queens of the Stone Age. So when you listen to Queens of the Stone Age and you hear kind of the more droney, heavier, slower songs, that is Kyuss. So I really like Kyuss. Not a lot of people kind of remember them, but I have a couple of their albums, and Welcome to Sky Valley is a must. And then here we have one of my favorite thrash metal albums of all time, that is Testament, The Gathering. Another really high quality release here. Again, double vinyl, 180 gram vinyl here. Really, really great presentation. You get to open it up and you see all the lyrics, and again, just a really great heavy album. And then finally, I have a couple record day releases here. So for those of you that don't know, at least in North America, maybe worldwide, one day a year, they do record days. And essentially, local record stores do specials, and bands release limited edition albums just for that day. So I've got 2 of them here. One of them is Slayer. So this is a little 33 here. Again, printed on really cool vinyl. This is Black Magic Live, and then also a new song, When the Stillness Comes. Pretty awesome to have that. And then Judas Priest recently released a new album, and this is a 5-song EP here just for Record Store Day, and it's called 5 Souls, and it comes on red vinyl. Very, very cool. So anyways, that's a very quick just look at some of the vinyl in my collection. Of course, I could have made this video 10 times as long and cover not just metal, but also pop. I've got 70s, 60s stuff in there, alternative, you name it, I have it in my collection. So anyways, dude, I hope you enjoyed that. Great question. This question was asked by one of my Patreon contributors who also helps support my YouTube channel and videos. I want to thank you very much. In addition to being able to ask me questions like this in a private message board, you also get early access to all of my videos and some other really cool perks. If you're interested in checking that out, please go to patreon.com/MetalJesusRocks.